Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today for today's webinar, Top 10 Reasons to be Thankful for Bacon Unlimited. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. For those who have done this before, you've heard me say that. And so just hang tight, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, everybody, we are going to get started. It is like the holiday season. I feel like every time we do a webinar, it's like a little monthly holiday, except your gift is better endpoint management. So let's talk about it. We are going to go over today's agenda, which will have our introductions, high-level overview, these top 10 great features that we deal with, and some enhancements. We will also do some other stuff, some house cleaning and some polls, as we tend to. So let's jump in with that. So we'll start with introductions. Joining me today is Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers and master demonstrators. And I am John Mercado, Bacon CTO and co-founder. Dave, welcome. Thanks for joining.
As always, thanks for having me. Hello.
Hello. I think we'll just jump kind of right into it since we only have 30 minutes. And let's do the housekeeping items. We will be giving away a GoPro, so make sure you stay till the end and fill out the survey. Also, it helps us do better and better at this. And don't make your only survey comment that you want more GoPros, because we're going to give them to you anyway. So you don't even have to say that, or something else, other little fun things. Please do participate in the polls. It just makes it go faster if you just click the answers, and it's really, really easy. And also you can ask questions on the little GoToWebinar side panel that's stuck on your screen there. So you can pop in and ask anything you want, and we'll generally be able to answer it right during the webinar. Otherwise, we'll get back to you on it. Also, go visit our YouTube channel, which is just by searching Bacon Unlimited. Dave, if you want to pop that slide over to the next one, we can show them that. And what we have up there are our Bacon Bits. And Bacon Bits are short videos that you can use for training, but also to get familiar with certain features. Very handy. We've got those going up all the time. I just got another one that I've got to post today, a little bit later, but nonetheless, those are up there. Also, historical webinars are up there as well. So with that, that's kind of the main stuff. We'll just get right into the polls here. Lane's going to help us out and post those. So Lane, if you want to post the first one, let's get it going. All right, which capability is most important for your organization? Having security keys, the Remediator, which is the ability to remediate vulnerabilities, dynamic views and groups, user notification service for having your users interactively experience deadlines for getting patches and reboots done, and out-of-date software identification. So we just put a few up there. We thought people might be able to tell us which ones they like. And as soon as that poll result comes up, it'll populate on the screen. I'm looking at it in live motion here, and it looks like out-of-date software notification was the winner today, although remediation of vulnerabilities a close second. So All of that stuff is in there and more, and that's really helpful. Lane, if you want to launch the second poll, just find out what people are working on mostly. This is always helpful for us because when Dave's giving examples, he likes to make sure he's talking to the right audience. So just want to know if you're working on just a sampling of these, or if you have all of them. And yeah, we've got actually 100% have Windows, about 40% so far have Mac and Linux, and about a quarter say iOS devices who need to be managed. That's what we're looking at right now. So we've got 89% voted, and there you go. So that's a pretty standard one, but Windows does seem to take the cake. Most people have some Windows if they're not all Windows, and so that's pretty common. All right, so typically where we go from here is I give an overview of Bacon, so people who are unfamiliar on the webinar get familiarized. And then Dave's going to show off these top 10 features that people are appreciative of, and just kind of get people caught up. And come January, we're going to be doing, we won't have a webinar, I think, next month. And then in January, we will be doing one for our new release, which has some just absolutely amazing things in it. So we'll probably get to mention those at the end of the webinar, and we'll get right into that. So with that, let's talk about what Bacon is. So Bacon is an endpoint manager and vulnerability remediation solution. I don't say vulnerability management because most people, when they say vulnerability management, they mean they can scan for and list vulnerabilities on your machines. A very, very valuable thing to be able to do, and we do that partially, or we do that as well. But we do also recommend using something like Tenable, which does very deep scanning and gets even more data. And so you want to have the most data possible, and that's why Tenable is a gazillion-dollar company, because they do that better than anybody, and we have a great partnership with them. In fact, we're their only full endpoint integration. They helped us build it. We're listed on their website under endpoint, and we stand alone in that category, which is very fun. So what does that really mean? Well, Bacon's been around for a while. It's a real-time collector of data and interactor with your machines. It does remote control for one-to-one fixing, so screen, CLI, and disk system remote control. But more importantly, you can do things en masse. So you can do huge amounts of automation to lots of machines at once, thousands of machines at a time. You can run patches, you can install software, you can uninstall software, you can change literally every setting and configuration on any machine. And you can monitor all of that and know exactly what's going on, as well as monitoring things like health and what software is installed and things like that. So you want to be able to patch third-party software plus the operating system, change any settings. Bacon's going to allow you to do all of those things across all of your endpoints. What sort of ended up happening was we realized that most of our clients were using that to cure vulnerabilities, but we didn't really give them the best interface before to sort of talk about vulnerabilities or look at it from that point of view. So we added that in version 5.0. We're currently in 5.1 now. And essentially what you can do is you can see everything on your machines that's known about in the National Vulnerabilities Database, which is maintained by NIST. And also you can spot anything that's on the CISA KEV list. So anything that is currently being exploited in the wild, that's really dangerous stuff. So we're going to have all of that in there for you, and we're going to give you a direct, easy path to remediating all of those. Now, if you also have Tenable, you'll get a much higher level of data. It's not a lot more. It's probably about 7 to 10% by our calculations. But when you're talking about security, you want every percentage of information you can get. So if you do have Tenable, the full versions either of the cloud or the on-premise solution, you can tie that right into Bacon. It takes about 20 seconds, and they will exchange information, and we'll match that against your endpoints, and we make remediations for 100% of the fixable things that show up in Tenable. So if Tenable lists a solution, if a solution exists, we make a quick path to be able to resolve it. So that's what Bacon does in a nutshell. And it has a lot of little small side features, and we wanted to give a little bit of that detail just to round it out for people. So with that, Dave, if you're ready, I'll hand it over to you to actually let the rubber hit the road and show this thing in action. Are you ready to rock?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
All right, well then the floor is yours. Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty, so let's switch over to our bacon server itself. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a sneak peek at a new version, but mainly what we're going to do today is cover some of those smaller features that can be really impactful. So let's kind of start with some basics. So if you're new to Bacon, essentially what we're looking at here is the Bacon server. Bacon runs as a series of Docker containers, and then we also have the installed agent portion on the machines. We've made some enhancements to the agent portion. We've added some tamper protection. So natively, we always had things to stop messing with like the agent folder and stuff like that. But we added additional security around all the services we're running as well. So we can have a more consistent agent experience and people can't just go in and like turn things off, stuff like that. In addition to that, we've also rolled out the user notification service, as John was talking about. This allows us to specify deadline jobs. So I'll go into that a little bit more when I get into the patching side. For now, though, let's go ahead and just dive in. And I want to start over on our endpoints table. I often say that the endpoints table is kind of like the main table in Bacon. It's probably the one I kind of sit on the most often because it leads to so many other places. And what we want to highlight here is going to be some of the components or capabilities, I should say, of our agent. So first thing, you're not really going to see it. It's more of a theater of the mind, but it is our real-time inventory. So all the data here that you're seeing is updated in real time. So if I click on my beta machine right here, if I was to install software or possibly start pushing out patches, you'll actually see this page change in real time, no refresh needed. And so we can at least tell that all the data we're looking at is current, and we know when the last update was, even with our little metric down here. In addition to that, we also have some dynamic views and groups in the system. So what that allows us to do is back on this endpoints table, we can create dynamic groups by using our predefined data here. So if I go over to my filter, I can do things like filter for all online machines, and say connected that are running Windows. So say OS platform is Windows. Now in Bacon, what I can do is actually make a dynamic group that allows me to then have Bacon automatically update the group membership based on the criteria I specified here. So then I can use that to push software, push patches, set up monitoring rules and stuff like that without having to maintain my group because I gave it parameters, it'll just figure it out for me. Now, one of the newer features we have is now dynamic views. So up here you can see views. This allows me to essentially capture what my table setup is right now. I could change the order of stuff, I could add filters, and then I can put those into these predefined views. And more importantly, I can also share those. So if you look here, you can see we have Brett in here, he's made some views, John's made a couple, Ben and Adam have made some, and then we have some stars here, that's the default views. This allows you to just change the context of what you're seeing quite easily. And so it's really easy to make a couple views, then push them out to the rest of the team so that people can have like a standardized view of Bacon with any kind of metrics that you're looking for. Last kind of tiny feature I want to highlight is probably on here just because I love it so much. I always talk about it in my demos, is our remote CLI. So on here in the very top right, we have a screen remote, shell remote, and a file system remote. These work how you'd think. You'd like connect to the screen, you'd see the little system here, but my favorite is going to be the shell. So this allows me to connect to the back end of the machine. And then from here, I'm running a system, but I can also use PowerShell. Of course, if you're on Linux or Mac OS, it'll drop you into their default terminal of choice. And so this allows me to get a lot of really good work done without bugging the user and borrowing the mouse only to open command prompt or PowerShell anyway. So again, really small things, but something kind of magical is when I'm working with people and I see them kind of like jump onto the shell, do a couple things and move around about the UI. It kind of lets us know we're doing it right. And we have these features that really matter. So this is definitely my go-to as an automation focused engineer. Next up, let's look at patching side. So as we mentioned before, we have our user notification service. What that allows us to do is to provide a much nicer experience for the end user when it comes time for patching. So if I'm going to push out any of these updates here, what I really need is two things. I need the update installed, and most likely I'm going to need a reboot on that machine. Now, we've all been in IT long enough to know that rebooting computers is just not something people want to do. I'll be honest, I don't do it as often as I probably should either. So what we were able to do here is kind of give the user some control over when they need that reboot done, but you also have control as well with a deadline. So we can kind of give them as much time as possible, but this gets rid of having to ping people's managers and ping them in teams, all kind of stuff. It's never any fun. So up here, if you look at my patch, you can see it requires a reboot. And down here, here's the machine I want to push it to. This is a server, but just imagine it's a workstation, kind of similar principle. Then when I use schedule with deadline here, it'll allow me to specify a date. So I can say, okay, you have until the end of the month. We'll just say Saturday. And if you don't restart by this time, it'll restart the machine for you. On the user side, they'll actually get a pop-up that says, hey, you have a couple updates that need a reboot. Do you want to schedule for your reboot now? Do you want to do it right now? Do it tonight? That kind of thing. So they do have a nice UI to kind of navigate. I'm sure we can also show it off in a future webinar as well, just to walk you through it again. The other side of this is Relentless Mode. So this is one of these features that it just makes a lot of really good sense. And I think this was actually recommended by a customer. What this lets us do is schedule patching and rebooting automatically. One thing we kind of saw was when you push out a lot of Windows patches, you may get some errors. And generally, the easiest way to fix that is just to reboot that machine, try the patch again, and it usually works. So we've built that automation into the system. So what Bacon will do is it'll take my list of patches. You can imagine I had 1, you can imagine I had 10. And it'll go through and try to install them on my machines. Here I can set a little time frame. So I'll say just generally from Friday to Monday. And what Bacon will do is in this time frame, it's going to install those patches, reboot, check to see if they're successful. If not, install them again, reboot, and kind of keep that going until either all the patches have been installed successfully or we exceed our time frame here. Now, of course, with all the patching, you still get all of the rich data output, all the logs and stuff will be available to you as well. So you can see if there are still errors, what those errors are, do your own Googling, that kind of stuff. But we found this to be really helpful as far as being able to just kind of automate this thing we all know exists and we all know how to fix it. This is kind of the weekend saver, right? We don't want to have to check in on the SQL server at noon and then a couple hours later. So this will kind of do it for us. And we can just look at the end result there. Now, John, I usually turn to you whenever we get to patching. Are there any features you wanted to mention around patching or possibly some other ones I haven't covered yet?
No, I'm just mostly excited about the scheduled deadline job and the ability basically to interact with users. The idea that you can take a security patch and say, by Friday night, every machine needs to be patched and rebooted. That's in the product today. And in 5.2, which is coming out here in really a few short weeks, what's really exciting is we also added the ability to do that just on the reboot portion. So if you happen to do a staged install on Windows, which is basically installing the patch but not completing the reboot, you can do that during the day, right? And then set a deadline job just to do the reboot. And the benefit of that is the end user only has to go through the reboot part. So they can skip the time it takes to download and install the patch, and they're without their machine for the shortest amount of time, but they're also deciding when that time is. So it's going to be the most convenient for end users, and it's going to allow the IT administrators the easiest path for getting lots and lots of patches done every month in a way that makes sense. I know we'll also talk about the fact that we're going to do some automation of some of these things, but I just wanted to mention I love the deadline job. It's my favorite thing that we've added recently.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to give users some control. It just makes the whole process smoother for everyone involved. And if it's smoother for IT, that's where I'm happy. Alrighty, so next up, let's go over kind of two similar things. So on our poll, we did have a pretty high results for being able to track out-of-date software. In Bacon, we can do it a couple ways. The way I'm thinking really is over in monitoring. So we have a monitoring rule that allows you to to monitor for out-of-date software. So when you go make a rule here, one of our monitor types is out-of-date software. And what we're able to do here is kind of cross-check the version of software in our managed packages against the version on the machine. So here we have a ton of managed packages. Typically, these are just available by request. You request an app, we can add it in here for further tracking. We just don't want to make this thing honestly 80,000 items long. It kind of gets a signal to noise ratio problem. So what we're able to do here is use our service in which we're going to track these applications on our own, and we'll provide your server with the latest version of the application, who made it, where to download the files, and then you can use this as well to track things. I'm typically a fan of tracking all the browsers. These things update very quickly, and we always want to stay on top of any kind of applications that typically generate CVEs frequently. So let's make our jobs easy. And so I can use this to track, let's say, I have my automation already set up to update Chrome. But if I'm getting my alerts still, it means it's failing, and I want to look at that machine, figure out what's going on. Is Chrome broken? Is the update not working? Did the user do something? This is a very good way to kind of keep tabs on that. Now, on the other side of things, we have our Remediator. Again, one of our newer features, we just love showing it off, if I'm being honest. And it kind of falls into this out-of-date software thing, too, if I'm being real. So what ends up happening with a lot of CVEs is you detect all of your issues, and then you have to just go fix them on your own. What we were able to do at Bacon is use our existing features, things we're already good at, and now kind of put them in the security space. So rather than patching to just get the number of available patches to 0, so my boss sees the big old green bar and he's happy, what I actually want to do now is patch in response to vulnerabilities. So here you can see on the left-hand side, I have my CVEs here. What we're looking at are CVEs detected by Bacon itself. And so this crosses with the NIST database, so I can figure out what software you have, what patches you may be missing, and present you with CVEs like that. As well as we also have Tenable plugins. That's what these plugins are down here. So we have integration with that system, so they'll find the issue and then we can help fix it because it's feeding us all of that data. Now, from the admin side here, it's actually really simple to fix this, and that's on purpose. What we're able to do here is just pick any kind of patch, go to Actions and Install. From here, you've already seen the screen, you know how it works. We're able to go through here and just push this update to our machines, possibly give my user a little deadline here so I don't have to reboot them right away midday, and we're good to go. Once all this have been installed, this remediation, or excuse me, this need for patching will disappear because none of our machines will be vulnerable anymore. Over configuration, it's going to be very similar. This is now tracking for machine configurations. So do we have SMB v1 enabled? Or do we have some unsafe configurations? I think we like to pick on Windows a little bit. Everyone has it, so it's very easy and very relatable as we show stuff off. So one of the ones I could look at here is this disable always install elevated in Windows. So essentially, we get the CVEs on our side, and our team can write these states and publish these so that your server can pull them down. But as well, you're able to use the same profiles and states engine. So if you wanted to, let's say, change a couple registry keys, you could use this as a template. You could also reach out to support and we can help you. But essentially what we're doing here is we're going to take this registry key, modify this value, and add this data into that value right there. This is super easy to deploy again. All we have to do, click Actions and Apply. Over in packages, again, this is kind of another way to track out-of-date software in a way where if it's out of date and there's a CVE generated, this is where we're going to see it. Again, just like everything else, all we'd have to do here is go to Actions and Install, and we'll be able to update Chrome, Firefox, or 7-Zip on the machines that need them very simply. Lastly, we have Actions, and this is really where the context comes in. So I want these first 3 tabs to be as easy and quick as possible. You can kind of see the 2-click method, maybe even 3 if we count the next screen, to get through and get everything solved. This last one is really where the IT chops come out. So this is where we need context. This will give you things from the Tenable side like, hey, you've got some disabled users on the server. Do you want to delete them? Or, hey, you've got an SMB share open on the server. If it's a file server, all things good. If it's not, maybe want to check on that, right? Could be an accidental configuration, some unauthorized changes, stuff like that. And so that's what this little menu here is basically for. If we can't fit it into one of these 3 and can't get like some nice quickie click ways to fix it, it may be something you need to look at. And so those will be fed to you here. Typically in a live environment, this is actually a lot smaller. It's just this is our internal lab, so we have a lot of things in here just to kind of play with the UI and populate things. But basically, this kind of simplifies having to remediate all these vulnerabilities instead of giving you like a giant just like report of everything you've got to go find this web server with old Nginx. It'll probably get sniped up here over in packages, or excuse me, patches through the package manager. So super simple. So that's just a quick kind of look at these features. I want to turn back over to John in case you have any quick updates or just want to give a general sign off.
Yeah, well, I think thanks for showing those, Dave. It is kind of a bit of a blitz. We'll give you guys the last few minutes to fill out the survey. We really appreciate you doing that. I hope you want to GoPro. But in addition, we do have some really exciting features. I mentioned the one that's going to add on to our already existing user service that came out not long ago that will allow you to do user service jobs for just reboot jobs in addition to software update installs and regular update installs and other configuration changes. But also with our new 5.2 version, we're going to have this advanced scheduling module. It's going to allow you to set pre-approval. So you could say like Windows security updates that are at least 5 days old get approved without me doing anything. And getting approved means that when a schedule is set for groups of computers, maybe you do all of your workstations for Windows or a certain subgroup of those workstations on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. or something like that. You'll see that on the schedule. You can have all kinds of different schedules for many different groups. And if those updates apply to them, it will get them installed without you ever having to lift a finger again. So those pre-approvals and the ability to do the schedules, the advanced recurring schedules, go alongside also with something called job chaining, which means not just patches, but other things can exist on those schedules. So you could, preset a service being turned off before you run patches and turned on after the patches are done. Like those kinds of settings are all built into that. So it's pretty exciting. There's a bunch of other little cool stuff in there. We won't get into that today, but do come to our January webinar. We're going to be showing this off. It's going to be live. You can actually see some new widgets in there that Dave kind of just snuck in. You'll be able to choose which widgets you have on the front, and we'll be adding a lot more widgets, so dynamic new widgets. It's exciting. So those are probably the things I've mentioned for today, Dave, and this is our sign off for the rest of the year on webinars. So I hope everybody has great holidays if we don't get to talk to you before then. And thanks again for filling out the survey and joining us today. And with that, I will bid you all adieu. Thank you very, very much.